The Mandalorians. Powerful, notorious, and one of the most feared groups in the galaxy. Over the years, there's been many different types of Mandalorians, each belonging to different clans, but beneath it all, some of these clans hold a dark and twisted past. In this video, we're going to break down each and every Mandalorian clan, and let's just say there's some that might surprise you. So let's get right into it. Clan Vizsla. Entering our first clan, we have Clan Vizsla, which was one of the very first clans formed in Mandalorian history. Clan Vizsla was a part of House Vizsla and was formed about 1,000 years before the events of A New Hope. This clan was founded by a warrior named Vizsla, who was the very first Mandalorian Jedi ever. Vizsla was discovered as Force-sensitive as a child, and so he grew up in the Jedi Temple, even earning himself the rank of Jedi Knight. As a knight, he created the iconic weapon called the Darksaber, and in time he used this saber to bridge both the Jedi and Mandalorians together. Unfortunately though, after Vizsla's death, the Jedi kept the Darksaber for themselves and stashed it inside their temple for years. That was until one day the Mandalorians broke into the temple and stole the blade back. From that day on, the Darksaber became extremely prominent within the Mandalorian culture. It became a symbol of leadership, and whoever wielded it was granted to be the ruler of Mandalore. Over the years, the Darksaber was then passed down for generations within the Vizsla family until it eventually reached the hands of Vizsla, a descendant of Vizsla. Vizsla obtained the Darksaber around the early time of the Clone Wars and became the leader and founder of a group called Death Watch. Death Watch was a terrorist organization he created that was dedicated to restoring Mandalore's warrior culture. Now, although Vizsla was the owner of the Darksaber for a bit of time, he made the big mistake of eventually alliancing with the former Sith Lord, Darth Maul. In time, their alliance was soon broken up, and Maul challenged Vizsla to a 1v1 duel, battling to the death. In the end, Maul won, but not only did he beat Vizsla, but he killed him as well, and claimed the Darksaber as his own. However, Vizsla wasn't the last of the Vizsla family. Close to 30 years later, during the time of the New Republic, we're introduced to Vizsla and his son Ragnar, two descendants of the Vizsla family. Vizsla, as well as his son, continued Clan Vizsla's legacy through what was called the Children of the Watch, which we'll talk more about later. At one point, Paz tried obtaining the Darksaber for himself, as it eventually entered the hands of the Mandalorian named Din Djarin. Paz wanted it though because he knew what it meant: leadership and power. Not only that, but the Darksaber was a blade that was formed by his ancient ancestors, so he of course wanted it more than anything. Sadly though, he was unsuccessful. After challenging Din Djarin for it, he lost and unfortunately never became the owner of the blade. Then in time, Paz's story would soon come to an end when he made a heroic sacrifice to save other Mandalorians. As a result, he was killed by 3 Praetorian guards, and that marked the end of Vizsla. As for his son Ragnar though, he lived on and continued the clan's legacy. Clan Fett. One of the most popular clans on this list is none other than Clan Fett. The Fett family consisted of the Mandalorian foundling Jango Fett, his clone son Boba Fett, and the female clone Omega. Each of Jango's children shared a genetic template, but unlike normal clones, these two were unaltered, and so they didn't have accelerated aging. Jango himself served as a genetic template for the clones in the Grand Army of the Republic, and although it's not confirmed, it's estimated that there was at least over 6 million clones made. Each of these clones all had accelerated aging, that way they'd be ready for war sooner, except for Boba and Omega of course. However, from what's been shown in recent Star Wars projects, we can assume that Jango probably didn't even know that Omega existed. See, Omega was actually created as a private medical experiment by the scientist Nala Se, and was kept highly classified. Boba, however, was a clone that Jango requested from the start, and he raised him as his son for many years. That was until the Battle of Geonosis, when Jango was eventually killed by the Jedi Mace Windu. Sadly, Boba witnessed his father's death right in front of his eyes, and from that day on, he followed in Jango's footsteps to become a legendary bounty hunter. Boba even took on his father's armor and repainted it to his own distinct color scheme of green, red, and yellow. From there, Boba worked as a bounty hunter for decades and even claimed Jabba the Hutt's throne on Tatooine after the Empire collapsed. With both his father's armor and his skills, he forged a legacy as both a feared mercenary and a leader of Clan Fett. Clan Kryze. As for our next Mandalorian clan, we have Clan Kryze. Clan Kryze was a prominent clan founded on the planet Kalevala, another world that was located in the Mandalorian system. The earliest known member of Clan Kryze was a duke named Adonai Kryze, and under his family, they were known as the royal family for Mandalorians. Adonai had 2 daughters, Satine Kryze and Bo-Katan Kryze. Unfortunately though, he was eventually killed during war, and so when he passed, the clan leadership was passed down to his daughter Satine. Satine continued her father's legacy as Duchess, and during her rule, she attempted to reshape the Mandalorian ways by getting rid of their warrior-like culture. Instead, she focused on having a more modernized and peaceful government instead of one focused on violence and war. Unfortunately though, many groups didn't agree with her ideology, including her own sister, Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan, along with many others, believed that Mandalorians should be warriors, not peaceful negotiators. So at one point, Bo-Katan even joined pre-Vizsla's Death Watch group, and they opposed Satine's rule. However, that all changed when Maul gained leadership of Mandalore like we spoke about earlier, and killed Satine with the Darksaber. At that moment, Bo-Katan was furious, as she refused to allow an outsider like Maul rule Mandalore. So she broke away from Death Watch and forged her own group called the Night Owls. She and the Night Owls, along with some help from the Jedi, then all teamed up to put an end to Maul's rule. Eventually they were successful, and were able to drive Maul away from his corrupt leadership. With that, Bo-Katan became the new ruler of Mandalore for a short time, honoring her clan's legacy. Clan Rook. Clan Rook was a Mandalorian clan active during the time of the Empire's rule, and was a part of the house named House Caste. From what we know of, there's only two possible members of this clan, and that's Rook Caste and Vizsla Caste. As of right now, all we know is that they share names with the house, but no set connection has been confirmed yet. Rook Caste served under Maul himself when he rose to power, and was a highly respected leader under his rule. Even after the Empire rose to power, she stayed loyal to Maul, and stuck by his side throughout it all. That was until her eventual death, who came by none other than Darth Vader. As for Vizsla Caste, she was actually well known as an artist, but sadly she later died in the war that was caused by Maul's takeover. However, that wouldn't be quite the end of Clan Rook. Almost 20 years later, Clan Rook eventually pledged loyalty to Bo-Katan Kryze. Bo-Katan helped bridge several Mandalorian clans together, and Clan Rook was one of them. Clan Saxon. Clan Saxon was another Mandalorian clan led by the warrior Gar Saxon throughout the Clone Wars. Saxon was originally a member of Death Watch for many years until eventually Maul grew to power and he sided with him. Similar to Rook Caste, Saxon served as a commander under Maul's rule, and while it was short, he proved his loyalty to Maul on multiple occasions. Eventually though, Bo-Katan and her forces overthrew Maul and his army like we spoke about earlier, and Saxon made a choice that not many Mandalorians made. He sided with the Empire. Because Saxon craved power for himself, he collaborated with the Empire when they rose to power. Safe to say it paid off for a while, as he was even appointed governor of Mandalore by Palpatine himself. As governor, he commanded his own group of Mandalorians who also served the Empire, and they had a lot of success throughout their years. Eventually though, Saxon was defeated and killed by the Mandalorian named Sabine Wren, and her mother Ursa Wren, who we'll be speaking more about shortly. As a result of this, Gar Saxon's brother Tiber Saxon then inherited his power, but unlike Gar, he didn't rule for long. It wasn't much longer until he was also defeated by Sabine, ending the rule to the Saxon clan and family. Clan Wren. Clan Wren was a Mandalorian clan led by the Countess Ursa Wren. The Wren family was highly respected as Mandalorians, as the family consisted of Ursa, her husband Ulrich, and their two children Tristan and Sabine. This clan was active from the time of the Clone Wars all the way past the Imperial era. Initially in the Clone Wars, their allegiance was to pre-Vizsla and the Death Watch group at the time, but later when Bo-Katan fought against Maul's rule, Ursa and her clan joined her. Not long after though, the Empire rose to power, and that's when everything changed. Ursa's daughter Sabine became a cadet at the Imperial Academy on Mandalore, but it turns out the Empire was exploiting her talents to create a super weapon unlike anyone seen before. This super weapon was called the Arc Pulse Generator, which was a weapon that was capable of superheating the Beskar alloy inside Mandalorian armor. From there, it would turn the Mandalorians' Beskar armor against them and would disintegrate them in just seconds. At one point, Sabine herself spoke out against the Empire for their corrupt ways, but sadly the rest of her family sided with the Empire, not her. They labeled her as a traitor, and so Sabine left the Imperial Academy and later joined the growing rebellion. Years later though, the Darksaber eventually ended up in Sabine's hands, and so she made a big choice. After mastering the weapon and overcoming her fears of abandonment from her family, she decided to return to them. At this point, all she wanted was to heal her relationship with her family and show them how corrupt the Empire really was. Luckily for her, it worked, and in time she was able to convince them to join her side and fight against the Empire. With their help, they were able to defeat the Governor Gar Saxon, and under Sabine's leadership, she was even able to destroy the super weapon she helped build all those years ago. Following these events, Sabine then gifted Bo-Katan the Darksaber, as she believed that Bo-Katan was more experienced and more fit to rule Mandalore. At first, Bo-Katan was hesitant, but in time she accepted it, and as wielder of the Darksaber, she did some good with it. Using it, she was able to unite many Mandalorian clans together, including Clan Wren and Clan Rook, who we spoke about earlier. From there, she led them all up until the Empire finally collapsed years later. At that point, Palpatine died, Vader saved Luke, and the second Death Star was destroyed. With all that, things really seemed to be heading in the right direction, as peace was finally restored. But not for the Mandalorians. Not long after all these events, many Imperial remnants used all their remaining forces to bomb Mandalore. This event was called the Night of a Thousand Tears, or also known as the Great Purge. During this tragic event, Mandalore was destroyed, and millions of Mandalorians died that very night, including all members of Clan Wren, all except for Sabine herself. So, as the last surviving member of her clan, Sabine took it upon herself to train in the ways of the Jedi, under the guidance of Ahsoka Tano. Clan Eldar. Clan Eldar was another clan that was active during the reign of the Empire. Unlike most Mandalorians though, these warriors normally wore black, dark green, and orange color combinations. Their signet was that of a lion, which was meant to represent their bravery, courage, and pride. Sadly, we don't know much else about Clan Eldar, but we do know that they were one of the many clans that fought against the Empire's rule. Just like Clan Wren and Clan Rook, Bo-Katan also helped bridge this clan together later on. The Tribe. Entering what's arguably the most unique clan on this list, we have the Tribe. The Tribe was a Mandalorian clan that was formed after the fall of the Empire and the Great Purge. The members of this clan were a part of what's called the Children of the Watch, which according to Bo-Katan were a cult of religious zealots that broke apart from the Mandalorian society. Unlike the millions that died on Mandalore during the Great Purge, the Children of the Watch survived, as they had lived on the moon of Concordia, not Mandalore. So, after Mandalore was bombed, they formed their own clan called the Tribe, and would stay in hiding to ensure their survival over the years. However, to remain hidden, they practiced extreme rituals. Each member would partake in things, such as swearing the way of the Mandalore, never removing their helmets in front of others, and also reciting the words, "This is the way," as a form of obedience to their culture. Because of all this, they fell out of the mainstream Mandalorian society, and were frowned upon by other Mandalorians, as they were just known as extremists. However, that would eventually change. In time, Bo-Katan herself spent a lot of time with a Mandalorian named Din Djarin, who was a member of the Tribe. As they spent time together, she began to understand their ways, and instead of scolding them for being extremists, she began to accept their culture. So with her leadership, she united them, as well as other Mandalorian clans together once again, and bridged everyone together. Like we spoke about earlier, she did this years ago with Clan Wren, Rook, Eldar, and others, and now she's done it once more with the Tribe and any other surviving Mandalorians. So as a result, the Tribe and all these other survivors worked together, and they eventually reclaimed their homeworld of Mandalore. With that, Bo-Katan became the rightful ruler of Mandalore once again, and peace was truly established. Clan Mudhorn. Led by the Mandalorian Din Djarin, Clan Mudhorn is not only one of the smallest clans on this list, but the newest. This clan consisted of two members, Din Djarin and his apprentice Grogu. After completing a job as a bounty hunter, it was there where Din encountered Grogu for the first time. Originally, Grogu was the bounty and Din was supposed to turn him in and that was it. But then things quickly changed. On his way back to turn Grogu in, Din encountered a large and deadly beast called the Mudhorn. It was there where Din was almost killed by the Mudhorn, but to his surprise, Grogu used the Force to save his life. At that moment, Din was shocked, but little did he know his life would never be the same after that. After turning Grogu in as a bounty, Din felt guilty as he started to slowly grow a bond with him. So he did what no bounty hunter should ever do, and he went back to rescue Grogu. From that day onwards, Din and Grogu developed an inseparable bond, and fast forwarding years later, Grogu not only became his Mandalorian apprentice, but also his son. As the father and son duo, Grogu was soon renamed to Din Grogu, and these two were Clan Mudhorn. To represent their clan, each of them kept a Mudhorn symbol engraved as a signet on their armor. Both made out of pure Beskar, Din had his on his right shoulder, and Grogu had his on his shield. This then became the symbol of their clan and their relationship as father and son. With that though, that concludes our list of every single Mandalorian clan in Star Wars. But I want to know from you, if you were a Mandalorian, which clan would you want to be a part of? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always.